This is the On the Mark podcast, bringing you facts, opinions, and personal experiences from the outdoor industry.
I got the opportunity to shoot an AR-15. That was one of the funnest experiences that I've had.
It's pretty exciting. It's a big rush.
Presented by Sightmark, an industry leader in optics, bore sights, night vision, and more. Make your mark. Welcome to the On the Mark podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hamilton. Today, we are in the Sightmark studio. Sightmark is the sponsor to this show. They put the whole thing together and make it possible for me to come in here and talk, and anybody who wants to listen. So Sightmark is definitely the backbone to this podcast. And speaking of Sightmark, today I have joining me in the studio the president of Sightmark, James Sellers. James, how you doing this morning?
Doing great. It's great to be here.
I want to start off a little bit with just a little bit of background about you, where you came from, how you got started, and then we'll kind of roll that into, how Sightmark got started and got developed.
Absolutely. But before I begin, I want to say thank you to Jeff. You've done a fantastic job. Sightmark podcast on the Mark is awesome. It's engaging. It's fun. I can't wait to hear you have on next. So anyway, I'm glad to be here, and
appreciate that.
Always willing and excited to share a little bit about Sightmark and what we're about. So
cool.
It's good.
Awesome.
So my background, we could probably spend a lot of time in a deep dive on this, but essentially, for those of you that don't know, I was actually born and raised in Michigan. Nice. I love the outdoors, and since I was a young boy, spending time out in the field, in the forests and streams, marshes and swamps and lakes and streams, all that really was part of what I was growing up. And from a very young age, I always felt the most happy when I was outside.
Yeah.
From there, had just I couldn't ask for a better childhood. I had a very inspirational father who was more like a philosopher.
Yeah.
Who was always had principles and ideas and was talking about, the Constitution and liberty and freedom. He always thought it was very, very important at a young age to shoot.
Sure.
And what was your experience? What was your first shooting experience? What was that about?
Well, my first shooting experience started off really young. I grew up on a family farm about an hour south of here, where I still live currently.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it was one of those things that we just always hunted and had guns around. I was taught from an early age how to handle firearms safely. I think I knew the 4 main rules to gun safety before I knew most other principles that children know. It's like the other kids in school thought I was weird because I knew weird things like that. But my first experience was just my little Red Ryder 22 or my little Red Ryder BB gun, just pumping that thing up and shooting at bottle caps and anything I could. Well, actually, it depends on what you consider, because I also grew up with those little, nowadays, I don't even know if they still make them, but the little revolver pop guns that look super realistic.
They used to have the magazines.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That was awesome.
I had the one that the bail flipped over, and you could put the little circular pops in, and it would actually make a bang when you fired it.
Yep.
Those were the toys that we played with growing up.
The realer, the better at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's kind of like, we need to make everything orange and green and make sure it doesn't look any type of realistic, which I get it in a sense, but at the same time, kids like to experience those types of things. They want to be like dad, and they want to be... They want to be like these people that they strive and see full-grown adults do. So I think there's some merit to, allowing children to play with these types of things and also teach them while they're doing it, hey, we're not going to point these at people. We're going to shoot at objects and targets, My son is 2, and I'll tell you right now, my son, within the last month, has started experiencing Nerf guns.
They're fun.
And he loves them. But I'll tell you that, the biggest thing for him to learn is, we're not going to shoot at people right now, because he doesn't understand that concept. So it's just, don't point that at me. Don't point that at your mom. If he does, he gets it taken away. Yeah. And he gets upset about it. We're only going to shoot your dinosaurs, right? He loves it.
It doesn't matter. We didn't if we didn't have Nerf guns, we were making guns in our workshops out of wood. We used our fingers. We found a stick in the woods. Boys are just naturally inclined that way.
The little rubber band guns with the.
Those were always. I always wanted to buy one of those. I never had a rubber band gun.
Oh, what?
We used to make our own, but I never got the ones at the fair with the little.
Yeah, you're gonna have a rubber gun.
Safety.
You're gonna have one soon. I guarantee you, because you can't go through life without a rubber band gun.
I think it's time.
We'll
I think
get you one.
I have a lot of other type of guns. I think I need that one.
I think we've got some industry connections that could hook that up.
That'd be good. I was waiting for a 50 cal. It's like on my wish list, but I think we need the rubber band gun first.
Yeah, that's more attainable and less expensive to shoot.
That's true. Maybe.
So diving back to you talked about your dad for a little bit and how he
Yeah.
was kind of your inspiration. Now, your dad, as I understand, and I didn't know until recently, was actually heavily involved in a major cereal rebrand, right?
True. Yeah. He actually went to New York after he graduated from graduate school. He had an MBA from Michigan, University of Michigan. And he got to work for Post in the new product development team. And one of the products they launched and he developed was Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles.
No kidding.
So he's probably a part of the childhood obesity pandemic that we have in our country. But, when he came home or when I was growing up, he couldn't stand the thought of sugar cereals being in the home.
Yeah.
But he also worked on Grape Nuts, which is a healthy cereal too.
Yeah.
So he actually is very adamant about the importance of like healthy eating because he saw how the big food industry worked. But I got to tell you, Fruity Pebbles is delicious.
They are delicious. I mean, it's sugar in a bowl, and honestly, if you look at
very addictive.
If you look at if you look at a lot of breakfast choices just to grab and go or to consume quickly, it's like all sugar based, and that's one of the things I've struggled with myself. Is like I'm a 3 meal a day guy. Like the people who skip breakfast, I have trouble operating that way.
You gotta eat breakfast. I honestly think someone American not eating breakfast.
Yeah. So, I struggle with like being able to get something quick that's also healthy and go. I found some Jimmy Dean breakfast like cups where you just crack an egg in them and throw it in the microwave, and it's awesome. Much better alternative for anybody that might be watching. Jimmy Dean breakfast bowls, and then Jimmy Dean is going to be a sponsor to this show after this, probably.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be great. Next time we'll have breakfast here or coffee. One thing I was going to mention, in the early days, with wanting to, I was fascinated by firearms. I used to get the Small Arms Review, and it was like this giant book, and it had like an annual, had like every rifle I think ever created, and I would study that. I thought it was fascinating. But I learned how to shoot also at a very young age. Yeah. My grandfather and father both would teach me marksmanship. And the funny thing is, as a kid, they thought it was very important to learn just iron sights.
Sure.
Just basic, discipline, trigger discipline. And so I learned kind of the fundamentals that way. And I always wanted to have optics on my rifles. I always dreamed of, looked at scopes, and thought, I could shoot a mile with this thing. It'd be great. So that was always something I really wanted to do. But I really wasn't, that was not available to me. So maybe that drove my passion of, I want to have optics on my rifle. Yeah. I got to have it.
It's funny you say that because both my father and my grandfather would not put an optic on a 22 or a 30-30. And so both of those calibers, in either of their gun safes, would never have an optic on it. They were like, these are iron sight guns. It's what we need to shoot. And then like the other, like more like our 243 bolt action rifle, they have a scope on that. But everything else was going to be like straight iron sights.
Yeah, but I remember going to the gun shop. Actually, it was a bait shop, probably fishing shop primarily, but they also had ammo and some rifles in there. In northern Michigan, and we used to go fishing and used to go hunting. So used to go shooting. We used to go there and get those 22s. I think they were like 25 cents or 50 cents a box. Yeah. Back in those days. But I remember looking through the scope and just being hooked. I was like, man, this is so cool. You can see so much more detail. Yeah. Shot placement gets better. Right. It's so awesome. But yeah, I didn't get in. It was much later. I don't know if I started shooting regularly with the optic until I was out of college.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that turn into Sightmark?
Well, I think that a couple of things that kind of again resonated. I mentioned that I grew up in the outdoors and enjoyed just basically in the morning. I wake up. I remember when I was really little, I'd put a compass. Mm-hmm. I'd have a little canister, the plastic canister for 35 millimeter with a bunch of matches in it,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
And I'd have this little tiny, Swiss Army with like
Yeah.
5. It was like the 5 option Swiss Army. I
Yeah.
never had the cool one.
Got the little scissors that doesn't cut anything.
I don't even think I had the scissors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was the small one,
Yeah.
the 5 different things. And then, of course, again, I was upset. I never had the 101 tool one, the one that's like giant.
Right.
Never had that. But anyway, so I get up in the morning, grab very few things. And sometimes I grab my 22 rifle, which was I guess my father got it from his uncle when he grew up on a farm. So I go out and have the 22. If we come across rats at the junkyard or whatever, shoot those. And we'd shoot. I actually go in the woods and shoot a lot of bottles.
Yeah.
Back in Michigan, the hunters used to go out there with a bottle of whiskey, sit underneath a tree, and they'd come back if they shot a deer or the whiskey was gone.
Yep.
So I would shoot these late 1800s vintage bottles, which I found now are worth $100
Yeah,
a piece.
probably bottles.
I
now
probably blew $1 million worth of bottles as a kid. But it did help marksmanship. And when the bottles started running out, I started shooting, bottle caps and everything else. But yeah, those are really great times. And I think the thing is like young men, young boys especially, really need an opportunity to be men or learn to be men. And I think, for a lot of children now are growing up in suburbs or growing up in cities, and they just don't get an opportunity. So one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to do something that would help continue our outdoor tradition, and then spark that imagination of a child, whether they're at range in the urban area, it doesn't matter, whether they're out shooting skeet or they're going out hunting. I just want people to have that desire to go do that and experience that, so they can have just a little bit of that. And I'll tell you another thing too. For me, when I was young, I mean, don't mind sharing, I wasn't strong academically. I had dyslexia.
Sure.
I found school difficult. I was very interested in books and things, but it just was difficult.
Right.
I really wasn't the type of kid that just wanted to sit in a classroom all day. I had to sit still and listen to somebody lecture to me. It just wasn't my thing. So the outdoors was my great escape. That was where my mind would go free, and I'd imagine great things, and really built my character.
Sure.
I think it wasn't for the outdoors. I don't think I would have amounted to much because early on in my academic career, it looked like it was going nowhere.
Well, and it seems like I've heard similar stories about people who just naturally flourished in the outdoors, just the environment of it, and then academically, like they just weren't tuned into school, or they just really, like when they were in class, their mind was somewhere else. Their mind was out hunting, or just walking around with their gun shooting, and in their mind, that's always on their mind. What I identify that is finding your passion very early on, as to where in some other cases, you have people that will be very highly educated with a lot of success in the education system, but all the way up until after college, and they still have not found any type of passion. And what ends up happening is they just go do some job that they don't have a drive to do. And that happens so much.
It's a huge issue. Sightmark, if it can just play a small role in getting young boys and girls having a chance to be proficient and good and trusted and confident with something, is huge. And I would really love that. And I would stress anybody that's got, especially boys aren't designed to sit inside a classroom at a desk all day. We're just not wired that way. If you have a young boy, get them outside. It doesn't matter if they're hunting or shooting or just walking or hiking or riding bikes or playing sports. Get them outside. They need that. And if it really wasn't for the outdoors, I don't think I would have ever found something that I felt like connected to, accomplishing, and passionate about. And that passion did end up driving me to continue to work hard. You learn things by being outdoors. You learn how to solve problems and figure things out and keep going, enduring. And that's the same skills that you need. We do need education. It's very important. And I always joke with everybody. So if I was, give me enough time, I'd probably get a PhD and I'd be like writing books. But I did end up getting a master's degree in business with a desire to develop technologies. So that ended up culminating with kind of a background in business and technology development, with the idea to do it with something. Originally, I wanted to go in defense industry. It's probably because I loved firearms. I thought that would be really great. Another kind of funny tidbit, I couldn't get hired in the defense industry without an engineering undergraduate.
Really?
Yeah, everybody wanted to see a mechanical or electrical or something like that. So, so that was kind of my background. Before I started Sightmark, I was working for a controls company, a manufacturer, controls based in the U.S. And I saw the power of a good product culminated with good people dedicated to a cause. So, but you know what? Everything's need-based. At the end of the day, companies are successful is because they found an opportunity in the marketplace where people weren't getting what they needed.
Right.
And ultimately, that's kind of the birth of Sightmark, was in the notion of what I felt like was a missed opportunity in the outdoor space. And again, you got to look at the early 2000s, late 1990s.
Yeah.
It's a different environment than it is today. And if people go back and think about what was happening then, it's extremely different landscape.
Right.
So I don't know, were you shooting in the early 2000s? Were you
Oh,
still,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember how the industry was kind of afraid of the AR-15?
Yes. Within a sense, I was still pretty young then. And my family had not ventured into the AR-15 space yet. So we had a bunch of traditional hunting rifles, your bolt actions, your lever actions, and stuff like that. That was primarily what we used. But I remember the stigma that was attached, and frankly still is attached in some ways, to the AR-15, even though today it's the most commonly purchased firearm platform on the market. So
it's interesting.
I wasn't as involved at that point. I was actively shooting, but not as involved with the industry, just because of the age issues. But I was actively shooting.
Yeah, I think some of it was related to the assault weapons ban. I think because I believe that was 87, right? The assault weapons ban. So that was as a result of the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan and the injury to Brady. What was it? Anyway, one of the people that was with Ronald Reagan got injured, and they passed the assault weapon ban.
Yeah.
In his memory, which was a very emotional time for the country.
And yet today they can't even define what an assault weapon is.
Yeah, it's very bad. Yeah, anytime our whole Constitution was designed to protect us from passing laws in an emotional state.
Yeah.
Our founders knew that was a big issue. Most of the worst laws ever passed were knee-jerk reactions to something, and badly thought out that were ill-defined. So that was one of them. We never even defined what that was like. But I think in that time, like, I was very interested in modern rifles, and the most exposure we had to the rifles at that time were what the military was using, the M16, since Vietnam. And and you had in the 90s when we had the first Iraq involvement. In the 2000s, we had a continued involvement after 2001, Afghanistan and Iraq.
Yeah.
And all these soldiers would come home familiar with shooting the M16 platform and other military type rifles. And it's everybody if you look at the history and time forever in hunting, we always chase technology. Yeah. Technology often starts to be adapted and tested and improved for a battlefield.
Yep.
And then if it works better, guess what? That's what everybody wants.
Right.
And you really couldn't beat the versatility of the AR-15. Yeah. It is very effective and efficient. It is a very easy to use. It's safe. It doesn't. Accuracy and safety is very important.
Yeah.
And I think that people saw how the potential of that when it was popularized, and a lot of folks started using it for their recreational uses. That was unknown in the industry. The industry was totally marketing bolt action, traditional hunting, and so that was that really was the environment Sightmark was in. We took a hard look at that, and we're like, okay, this AR-15 is really amazing. It is fun to shoot. It's really inexpensive to make. It's a lot less expensive to make than a traditional bolt action with the heavy barrels and the heavy stocks. It's very versatile. It's easy to put rails on it. Actually, at that time, the rails weren't that common, which was one of the problems. You had handles, and you had to put a handle mount on the thing.
Yeah, you had the big hand guards that covered up 80% of the barrel.
So, back in the early days, like, we wanted to do all the accessorizing, like the people that came back from Iraq and Afghanistan were using. We wanted to bring that so people could go shoot targets and experience the state of the art.
Right.
Anyway, so ultimately, Sightmark was really about taking that new technology and the new way of shooting and bringing it to the masses.
Sure.
And one of the things that we felt that was important in the beginning is, the AR-15 is a really great versatile too. How do we make it better? You put a rifle scope on it, which is great, but rifle scopes are, the Remington 700 gram. That's like for long distance shooting and accuracy. But wouldn't it be really cool if you could have what's the most traditional rifle scope out there? Hunting rifle scope. What magnification range?
I don't know, 3 to 9.
3 to 9. There you go. 3 to 9 is great, versatile. You shoot 100, 200 yards, no problem, right? But for an AR-15, it can go everything from really quick acquisition to long distance shooting.
Yep.
So what's the solution there for a rifle scope? You want a 1x to something.
Yeah.
So we started working in that direction, thinking, it'd be really cool to have a rifle scope that's designed for quick acquisition shooting and long distance accuracy. So that'd be a popular thing. We also went and looked at what was in the stores, and it's interesting because you'd see like the kids using red dots.
Yeah.
And they would be on BB guns and airsoft guns. They were terrible. The accuracy was not good. There were some that people would use for like turkey shooting, just basic old red dots. And then you had like companies like EOTech and Aimpoint from Sweden, which are really high-end military designed, very, very expensive. Yeah. And that wasn't the reach of the masses. Again, Sightmark, we really wanted to be something that would get people into shooting and hunting and make that a passion, feed that.
The average person.
Well, I'll say there's the exceptional person, which is to me the person that wakes up every day, goes to work, puts in a solid day's work, saves their money, come home, have a family, and then they struggle, they work hard, they try to be the best parents they can be, they help the kids with their homework, they make sure they have clothes and food on the table. They work for what they have. To me, America is about people that work for what they have. Yeah. So I wasn't really worried about providing optics to the people that didn't have to work. Right. And that's not interesting to me. Right. If money's no object, then go play with the military stuff. Right. Go do that. Yeah. You know what? I'd rather get the guy that's going to get it, love it, be passionate about it, and use it. Yeah. I can tell you there's a lot of folks out there that have gun safes full of stuff they don't use. Yeah. I want people to use our stuff. Right. So, so that was the kind of, a foundation of the brand. Sure. So we're looking at the red dot. So the red dot, to me, was completely open. Nobody was really doing that at that time. The brands that did have red dots, it was an afterthought. They didn't innovate it. It's the same old thing that's been around since the 80s. So Sightmark, we thought that there's opportunity to innovate in red dots. Yeah. And, I guess that's one of the first things that we made a decision. There was an early time we were around a table and we're looking at different prototypes. We actually brought some people that we knew that are hunters and shooters. Yeah. And we laid out some of these prototypes and we're looking at what's on the market. We're like, gosh, guys, we can really change this industry. We can bring red dots and popularize them, because someday if the AR-15 is popular, the number one optic on a red dot or on AR-15 is going to be red dot. Yeah, sure. So we made a pledge and promised that we were going to develop the ultimate red dot. Yeah. And it was going to be the best red dot that's ever been produced for consumers, not using government funding. Sure. Yeah. And that was another thing. Everything that we did, man, talking about work hard and scrappers, we had the best team. Yeah. We worked hard. We didn't have any government money. We had no government contracts. So let's talk about that, though, real quick. So Sightmark started back in, was it 2007? It officially launched in 2007. Yeah. We started working early on some concepts before the brand existed. Well, yeah, but y'all started off with it was like bore sights were like really the driving force behind the brand for a while there, wasn't it? So we actually we had bore sights on the market, and I think it was originally launched in the AccuDot name, which we still use to this day for a newer series. I think it was first on the market without Sightmark. I'm pretty sure it was not branded in the beginning. Gotcha. Okay. And the reason for that was fairly simple, is because I am one of those people. Maybe it's my dyslexia, but I'm one of those people that I get so frustrated when I want to go hunt and shoot. And I'm an iron sights guy. Yeah. So I didn't grow up sighting in scopes. Yeah. But nothing frustrated me more than try to get a scope on a rifle. It takes too dang long, you know. And I shoot up too much ammo, and then all of a sudden I have to schedule hours to do it and get a bunch of more ammo, blow my budget out of the water. So again, if we're gonna make this popular for everybody, we want to make it fun where they can get the gun sighted in and they can go out and start shooting and enjoy themselves. Absolutely. So I thought, this bore sight idea was great. And then, the idea of putting a laser inside the cartridge it made it, and then we innovated on that too, because there were some people that had other concepts in the market, but they weren't that great. The quality was all over the place. So, but we also, again, we wanted to make it where everybody could have a bore sight in their bag.
Sure.
Originally, bore sights were anywhere from like $79 to $100 for one of these bore sights. And again, if you're paying, $2, $3, $4 for a box of ammo back in those days, that's a lot. I'd rather just shoot an extra box of ammo.
Yeah.
So we decided that we wanted to, if you look at premium ammo back in those times, it's like $20 to $40 if you're getting like really good ammo. So we thought if we could get a bore, what?
I said that'd be nice. I'd like to go back to that time.
Yeah, it's true. That's definitely true. So definitely now, I mean, everybody, if you don't have a bore sight out there, you need a bore sight.
And if you do need a bore sight, check out the Sightmark AccuDots. The thing about bore sights that you might not be aware of is it's actually the laser diode that's inside of the casing. One thing that makes the AccuDots a little bit different than everything else is we actually use, I think it's like 7, I'm going to say set screws for lack of a better word, pins that hold that in place. And some of our competitors don't do that. And what you can do is the roll test.
Yeah.
Put it on a table, roll it. If that laser has any movement at all, it's not going to be as accurate. And I guarantee the Sightmark AccuDot bore sights are going to be
the best.
Spot on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you're looking for, if you don't have one, you should be looking for one because it's that useful of a tool. You're right. The manufacturing process, we went back and we looked at that. And the way we end up solving that is we end up basically creating barrel analogs. So every one of our bore sights gets put into a barrel, and then it gets put into a test grid. And all those set screws you're talking about, that's how we get the diode perfectly centered to the theoretical impact point of every caliber.
Awesome.
So when you get it, it's tested and to perform.
Yeah.
And actually another thing too with that is we also knew that there's a lot of people that there's a lot of change. There's new calibers, there's like exotic, older calibers.
Sure.
So we actually have to this day the most specific caliber available. So that was one of the things that we worked really hard on in the beginning. Yeah. But we also knew that some folks have 20, 30 different rifles and they use all this different ammo. So we actually, one of the first patent we ever had was for a magnetic attaching universal bore sight, and which was awesome. And then I think we're in the first people, I think civilian-wise, we were the first people to do a green laser. Gotcha. So you could sight in actually at 100 yards, which was insane. Right. So you didn't have to do a 10-foot, you can actually do it at 100 yards where you're shooting. So that was even more accurate. Sure. So to this day, we offer full complement. We still have, patented technology that allows for attachments to the barrels, make it even easier and faster. We have green lasers now that allow you to sight in 100 yards. Right.
So we go from bore sights and being super successful with those into
the red dots dots. And it took us a while. Yeah. One of the things is that people don't understand is there was no civilian comparable product in the market. We came out with the best quality product that was on the market, and we did that for years. Then the market, everybody saw what we're doing. Everybody saw what they were doing. And you went and SHOT Show a few years later, and it was insane how many red dots started showing up in the optics companies. And then all of a sudden they started showing the AR-15. And, once we kind of broke the stigma of showing AR-15s and people having fun shooting and stuff, everybody jumped the bandwagon. Honestly, competition's a great thing to make us bring in our A game. Sure. So it was really probably recently, 5 or 6 years ago, we sat down with our head engineering, it was Jonathan Horton. And I was like, Jonathan, it's time. We've always talked about making the perfect red dot. Yeah. Let's do it. And at that time, we perfected the optic manufacturing that really eliminated parallax as good as the military stuff. Yeah. We don't really advertise that because people won't believe it. But anyway, so we really came out with the best optical system I think ever devised. It's so accurate. It's so awesome. And then we were able to do it on a mass scale, which got, again, it made a value that nobody can match. And then with the UltraShot series, which you actually have one on the kind of the latest and greatest of that version, but that gave birth and rise to the state-of-the-art red dot, which I still say this red dot platform is second to none. Yeah. And if you haven't shot the UltraShot, so if you're watching this podcast,
shot 'em. Oh,
Yeah,
people out there.
People out
Yeah.
there, if you
No,
haven't
I was
shot
about
it,
to say, I've shot them.
you got to get out and see it. It's a joy to shoot. We have like this crisp, bright reticle that works even in the sunlight. Even if you're in like Sahara Desert, we have a model that has a sun shield on it and a brightness setting. If you can't see the target, you need to get glasses or something. So.
And fast forward to today, I mean, just like the products are constantly changing and getting better, industry trends are changing. And right now what's become wildly popular is actually putting optics on handguns. And Sightmark has, I mean, just in the last 2 years, gotten really aggressive with coming out with perfect red dots for handgun. Whether it's a full-size pistol or a compact pistol, I mean, we've got options for almost anything now.
Yeah.
So
It is actually awesome. I think we're beginning to see, it's kind of like the rifles. When I was a kid, only a handful of people shot scopes.
Right.
And I think red pistols, probably very few people have red dots in pistols. But now I go to a range, I see more and more shooting red dots. Yeah. I think once people get a chance to see how much faster and more accurate they can be, it takes the guesswork out of it. And it's awesome. Yeah, I think Sightmark's team's done fantastically great at the pistol red dots. And, we're working closer with the manufacturers to make sure that when their products come out, we have the best red dot for it. Sure. So if you're looking for something new in pistols, there's a good chance Sightmark's working on red dots for products that aren't on the market yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
That may be true. We'll see what happens.
Let's switch gears a little bit because there are some topics here that I want to get to. And the first one's just going to be with the amount of people that have joined the industry in the last 2 years and some of the new laws that have been passed, which have been very good steps for the Second Amendment. I'm talking about like the Texas constitutional carry law, which is not a abnormal law. I think we joined 20 other states when we passed that law. So it's a pretty common thing, but it's a success for the Second Amendment. One of the things that I want to talk about is with all these new people flocking to the industry, part of that's because of COVID, part of that's because they're just scared of the environment now that's been created with all the riots and lawlessness that's been allowed to happen. Yeah. Firearm safety is something that will always be used against the firearms industry from the people who oppose it. Constitutional carry passed. Well, now you don't have to take training to be able to carry a gun. There's going to be more accidents. There's going to be less safe storage. There's going to be that's what the argument is.
Sure, absolutely.
Since we know what the attack and the arguments are going to be, what are some things that we can do to try and just help each other make sure that we're adhering to good firearm safety to keep not only ourselves but everybody else around us safe, and just keep that wolf at the door of like, I mean, there's going to be incidents that happen, but
yeah, you're right.
We've got to be proactive.
I think again, the problem. You make a really good statement, or you're what you're talking about is freedom comes with responsibility. Right. If you want freedom, you have to be responsible. Sure. And the problem is that it's once you limit or curtail freedom, it's almost impossible to get back. Yes. Once they take it, it's gone forever. And the fact that we're seeing Texas kind of rolling back infringements on the Second Amendment is actually pretty extraordinary. But with freedom comes responsibility, and that honestly starts at the home. Yeah. I think that our families need to do a better job of introducing young people to firearms at an early age. Yeah. They need to teach them how to operate the firearm, how to store a firearm, how to, the ins and outs. Yeah. So if your son comes over to a friend's house and they don't practice proper safety, right? There's a firearm not secured in a safe. All right, first of all, if you have kids, lock the guns up, keep them secure. I understand that you might not live in the most safe place, or you might feel like you need that firearm. Just do it safely. Right. Keep it locked up. Right.
Kids are naturally curious.
Yeah, and we're instinctively hunters, right, and warriors at heart. So, children are children because they haven't learned yet. Yeah. But the parents are the ones that have the responsibility. So first, foremost, parents need to be If you're going to have kids around and stuff, whether yours or not, put the firearms up. But if you teach your kids how to use a firearm, they're going to be a lot less likely to get hurt by a firearm that's being not used or stored properly. So
yeah, absolutely.
I would say start with that. I think getting kids outdoors shooting and be proficient is also important because it teaches responsibility. Nothing tells a child that you value them and trust them than giving them an opportunity to learn how to use a firearm.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And I think the other thing too is like we got to expand beyond our household.
Mm-hmm.
If willing, if you have friends, family members, nieces, nephews, if your wife doesn't shoot, if whatever, take them out with you.
Right.
Enjoy the outdoors with them. Do it in a fun, safe way. And,
Sure.
and please, for the folks that are teaching somebody to shoot for the first time, don't put out a 308 the first time they shoot.
Yeah.
Give them a 22.
Right.
Or a 223 even.
Give them something they're going to enjoy.
Yeah, make it fun. I know it's funny sometimes to watch somebody with an elephant gun fire the first round.
But you know what happens?
Turns them off.
You know what happens is you have like I don't remember, like 2 years ago there was I think it was CNN reporter went to the gun range first time. He was doing an investigative or like opinion piece. So he went to the gun range to shoot a firearm, and I think they gave him an AR-10. I don't know what the caliber was, but an AR-10 is going to be a larger caliber.
Yeah.
The dude shot it, first time ever shooting a rifle. Some of it might have been theatrics.
Yeah.
But he said it was absolutely terrifying. Scariest thing he's ever done. And I'm like,
well, his parents failed him first and foremost.
yeah, for sure.
And then it probably was a hit piece.
It was set up for failure from the beginning, though. It was a hit piece. But if that same scenario happens, though, where people say, you know what, I'm ready to start shooting. I want to get a deer hunting rifle, and somebody hands them a 308, and it's the first thing they've ever shot.
Right.
And you're like,
yeah.
it's okay to take little baby steps,
First time I shot a deer rifle was a 30-06.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I loved it. It was great. But you have to know how to shoot.
Right.
I knew how to hold it properly and brace myself, or whatever.
Yep.
Well, I think that's important. The other thing is I think we have some image work to do. This is the age of taking the worst case scenario and publicizing it.
Right.
I'll tell you this too. The people I know that own firearms, people that hunt and shoot, are the best people I've ever met.
Yep.
If you need somebody to help you out in a tough situation, if your car's broken down, if you need somebody to help you with a problem, they're going to be the ones that step up first and take care of it.
Yep.
And I know there's a lot of fine people out there that don't hunt and shoot, but generally speaking, I don't know if I've ever met somebody that hunted and shooted that wasn't good people.
Right.
I just haven't.
Yeah.
So for what that's worth, we need to be keeping that in mind when we are enjoying our freedoms.
Yeah.
Yes, we have open carry in Texas. And I think there's times where that's appropriate. It's your own business, your own house, your own land. Of course, you could always go up and carry there.
Right.
I prefer concealed carry, and I'll tell you why. I think concealed carry is better when criminals do not know who's armed and who's not.
Sure.
And also, if somebody is wanting to do harm or is unstable, I don't want them to be able to reach a firearm. I just think it's better to keep it hidden. It keeps all the cards on your side. So I would recommend, because there's people out there that never seen a firearm, or there's also people culturally that live in some very awful crime-ridden neighborhoods,
right,
where the only people that have firearms are criminals, and they're doing terrible things with them. And guess what? They can't legally own a firearm anyway.
Right.
But they have them. So let's try to teach people that firearms mean responsibility. Let's don't flaunt it. Let's don't try to excite and anger people. Let's be good stewards of firearms. If there's an issue or a problem, rise up the occasion, we'll solve it. But let's not go looking for trouble.
Well, and that's the thing with the constitutional carry here in Texas. It does allow for both open and concealed carry, and I'm of the same mindset of you. Of it needs to be concealed. I carry open carry sometimes when I hunt, but that's on my own private property for the most part. Other than that, it's concealed. And the reason is, same thing. I don't want to paint an unnecessary target on me. If there is going to be an active shooter in a public space, I don't want to be the first person he points out because he can clearly see I'm armed. They're going to take out the biggest threats to them first, and it doesn't make any sense to not give yourself the element of surprise
Absolutely.
if you have the opportunity to do so.
Yep.
So that's my whole mindset of it. Of course, I've made a Facebook post about that same thing recently. And everybody attacks on Facebook,
but here-
whether they agree with it or not.
But here's the thing: I think that the people that are, I think people are gonna be upset at me for saying that they should not, they should carry concealed rather than open carry. But the reason why I think it's important to have an open carry law is that we have so many laws that if somebody doesn't like your political ideology, they can find any law and they can take away your rights, lock you up, fine you, all this stuff. So in the past, people, you have a concealed carry, you take off your jacket, all of a sudden it's exposed.
Right.
You now committed a crime.
Yeah.
You did nothing wrong.
Right.
So I agree that they shouldn't criminalize that.
Right.
And I also agree that it's better to, give the person, a free pass, until the point they committed a crime. I don't believe that you punish people for crimes they didn't commit. I don't think it's right to take innocent, law-abiding citizens and treat them like criminals.
Sure.
So I totally agree with why they're decriminalizing and making rights of ours, restoring that to the people.
Absolutely.
But we need to be responsible if we want to keep them. And then we want to bring more people into our industry, into our lifestyle, into our culture. Be the person that you would want to go shooting with when you're hunting for the first time.
Absolutely.
And I'll also say another thing too, for all the folks that we have some great dealers out there.
Mm-hmm.
The dealers are very, very important in spreading the word about firearm safety and
Yes.
responsibility. Demystify the purchase process, especially for a new person.
Yep.
I know it's frustrating when people don't know a semi-automatic from a revolver, from a rifle, from a shotgun, and they don't know even which direction.
But you got to treat them like a customer and try to educate them and make them feel welcome.
Yep.
It's been one of my biggest rants is people are hesitant to go into gun shops. They're hesitant to go to the range. They're hesitant to go shooting with people that they're unfamiliar with because they're worried that they don't know as much as the guy sitting next to them, and they don't want to look stupid and feel dumb and be treated that way.
Yep.
And if we can kind of eliminate that feeling as much as just by being reasonable humans to one another and understanding like, hey, this person's just starting. I can help them out and teach them what I know and not belittle them. If we can do that collectively as a community, we'll get more people within the firearms industry
Absolutely.
that enjoy it and actually create a little bit better of a community for us. But what's interesting is you just said that you're against obviously taking law-abiding citizens and criminalizing them for no reason. Somebody tried to sneak some red flag laws into the 2022 National Defense Authorization Bill. The red flag laws, this particular set of red flag laws, were targeted towards military.
Seriously.
Ex-military, and basically what they're saying is once you've left the military, you're then subject to have your guns removed if anybody decides to flag you with these red flag laws.
The argument being what? I mean, is this in Congress now? Or
it's in Congress now,
This is scary stuff. Okay.
It's very scary. And for one, there's the civilian side of red flag laws, which have existed in other states for a while. I'm against those as well because I think it's very wrong to criminalize somebody before they've ever committed a crime.
Right.
There are obviously safety issues, safe storage issues. Like if somebody walks over to somebody's house and he's got guns laying out all over the living room and he's got a 4-year-old running around, maybe, okay? But it's that person's responsibility to take care of their children and their home, right? My problem comes in to play when we talk about red flag laws, both on a civilian side and a ex-military side. One, targeting ex-military just tells me that we've trained these guys to use firearms and we don't want them to own firearms once they are out from underneath our control.
Man, this sounds like a science fiction movie.
It does kind of, right? It's honestly that scary. But for the civilian side of things, red flag laws are scary as well. And it all comes down to, are they successful within reason? And how do you gauge that success? To me, a red flag law can only be successful if there's due process. The problem comes into play is like, okay, what is due process and who gets to decide what that is?
Right.
Currently, we have a administration that is anti-gun, pushing very strong anti-gun narratives. We've got the ATF proposing some weird point system for pistols that is completely open-ended, where literally, if somebody tried to red flag me, the ATF could come into my home, look at my guns, use this weird proposal that has not been passed yet, but if it was passed, could look at any of my AR pistols and say, okay, well, you have a red dot on here, so you got a point for that. Oh, you got a foregrip on here, you got a point for that. This stock could be shouldered, so you get a point for that. And 4 points, you've committed a felony at that point.
Yeah,
and it's like that to me is not appropriate due process. Like, if it opens up the door for you to literally be attacked by, like you said, we've got all these laws on the books, and if they really wanted to, they could pin you for something. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can ever avoid it completely, but that's what scares me about the whole red flag situation.
I think you bring up a really interesting point. You know, I am very concerned, or immediately, you know, the idea that reality is somebody else's opinion becomes reality is a very slippery slope. And I hate to say this, but it seems like society's jumping on that one pretty hard. But I don't understand how one person's definition and experience of sensitivity and what they consider scary should somehow impede my freedom.
Right.
So I think that that's a terrible precedent to allow somebody else's reality, false reality, to be imposed on, again, law-abiding people.
Yeah.
You know, where you're getting close to something that is kind of the heart of the issue. And I think that whoever wrote the law, trying to understand, I always try to understand how people think and why they said what they did.
Right.
I think they're probably concerned about people that PTSD, that come back from a combat situation where they served their country well, or put in some terrible situations, and they're higher prone to depression and suicide. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And we know some very good people personally that, they weren't able to cope with that, and we would do anything we could to protect them.
Yeah.
With saying that, though, does that mean we take our freedoms away and lock people in bubbles?
No.
We can't do that. So I think we do need better mental health care, and we need to do a better job for our veterans who serve the country. I don't think you take the rights away.
No.
I think that's awful. And also don't think we do not need to have our society go to the lowest common denominator, which means that old cat lady next door that's freaked out by everything shouldn't determine what's safe and not safe. So,
absolutely. And when it boils down to it, I mean, it's all about all these firearms, all these guns that we have. They're tools. You know, they're not weapons. They're not assault weapons. They're tools.
No.
You said mental illness or mental health. It all boils down, every single case of any mass shooting, anything terrible that's ever happened involving not just guns, which just came out. Studies came out that 2 times more people were killed with knives last year than firearms totally. That's pistols and rifles. It all boils down to mental health. Like, you can attack firearms all you want to, but it all boils down to mental health.
And mental health a lot of times is socialization. It's people growing up in broken homes without values and principles. It's people living in crime-ridden areas without opportunity. And every time you look that creates those environments, it's the environment where there's no offense, but there is not opportunity, there's not freedom.
Right.
And if you look at people that have chance to experience life in its wonderful variety, have been outdoors hunting and shooting, people that have read and studied, and people that are, been filled with virtue and goodness by using our founders as examples and other great men and women that did great things as examples. Those are people that they end up being strong characters and capable people. But when you create societies where you teach people to be dependent, that they are victims, that they can't be successful, they're not good enough, they need government help, that everything that America stands for is bad and evil, and that everything that anybody ever accomplished that was good, they had help getting it, they didn't deserve it, they were born to it. You're sowing the seeds of formula of failure. And if you want to make mental health problems That's your formula.
Yep.
So I would say that if you are a part of the solution, you turn that around. You give opportunity and freedom, and you create strong people with character, and that's how you build the country, and that's how you stop the crime problems and the mental illness problems.
I couldn't agree more.
You know,
I think that,
and those people that went out and served and end up suffering unimaginable horrors.
Yep.
Let's help them.
Right.
You know, they did the work. They did everything they could. We need to take care of them.
Yep.
So, so long story short, it's all our responsibility to create those environments, starting with our own families and our friends and family, and get them out and live a good life. Be a principled person. Teach them the right things. Teach them right from wrong. Teach them gun safety.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, if you really want a better future, we got to create these opportunities in a small way. Again, I know this is a Sightmark podcast, and we're trying to talk about the you know what we try to do for that.
Yeah.
One of the things that really, if we could just help that just a little bit, you know, by providing some tools that make people more accurate, have more fun faster,
right,
and that becomes a passion for them, then we're successful.
Yep.
Sightmark was created to have people enjoy the shooting sports.
Yep.
And, you know, I really hope there's people out there that are listening to this that they have all these stories about, you know, the first time they shot. If they shoot with Sightmark, that'd be great.
Right.
If the first time they hit 100 yards or a mile, they shot with a Sightmark. The first time they took a deer with their son.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the stories, man.
Right.
That's why we do what we do. You know, we believe in a strong, free country.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't want to live here if it's not.
Right.
So I'm staying. We're doing everything we can to try to make this a better place. And there's a lot of great people in Sightmark.
Absolutely.
And our friends and dealers and supporters, you know, God bless them, because they really are on the front lines of trying to keep this country safe.
Sure. I know you got a busy day, so I won't keep you too much longer. I am going to circle back around to just getting your kids involved at an early age. Guys, one of the things that with the industry continually growing, digital optics is now overtaking everything. I mean, they're becoming wildly popular. Sightmark's digital optics, whether it's a red dot sight or even our digital night vision through our Wraith line, one of the things that is so great about those is they have the ability to actually record. So you can take your young kid out on his first hunt and record that and have that memory forever to share with family or for him to look back on later. You talk about just completely changing the industry in a good way, and it should get more people more excited, more involved in the industry. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thank you for. I mean, again, we have a great team.
Yeah.
And you know, just because I think right now we have the best red dot on the market, the best bore sights on the market, and the best rifle scopes, we're not going to stop.
Yeah.
And we see a tremendous opportunity to take the digital technology and bring it into the modern firearm through optics.
Yeah.
And the Wraith is such an extraordinary product, and we have, you know, a lot to offer. Again, that's one of those things if people haven't seen, and what the Wraith really is the best digital day and night scope for the money you can on the planet.
Yep.
And it was designed to be the scope, everybody's scope.
Right.
They can use it for range, they can use it for hunting, they can record.
Sure.
You know, they can help train their kids with, you know, all that. So it's really a great product.
Yeah.
And I think it's taking that next level because as hunting opportunities become more and more difficult for the big game, we have plenty of opportunities to go hog hunting.
Yeah.
So, and no better time to hunt hogs than at night. So you have a day and night option. So it's really a lot of fun.
Yep. Guys, James Sellers with Sightmark.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks a lot.